First of all, I'd like to thank everyone for joining us tonight. I know there can be Zoom fatigue out there, a lot of different options, and we really appreciate your taking the time this evening. We have, in the Climate Change Coalition, been really looking forward to this program. Uh, when we've done programs in the past over the last almost 8 years now, um, two pieces of feedback have been consistent. One is that people like to hear, they understand and worry about climate change, but they like hearing good news. And the program we're going to talk about tonight is good news. And the other thing is people ask, what can I do? And how, it's a global problem. I can't influence global events, hard time influencing federal or state events for that matter. But what can I do? And tonight, action is important at all levels, individual, community, state, federal, global. But tonight we're focusing on community action. And to be quite frank, in the United States, a lot of the movement on climate change over the past 10 years has been at the state and local level. And community action, which is what we're talking about tonight, is particularly important for, well, 5 reasons, I think. One is because it is something we can all do and help with. The community programs don't do well unless community members support local government staff and others in getting it done. Second, community action inspires local action to take measures to change behavior, to reduce energy consumption, to do a lot of things, recycle, that are important. Third, community action inspires other communities to act, which is what one of our speakers tonight, Ryan, will talk about. I mean, Egg Harbor has set the bar, and other communities in Door County have followed. It also inspires state action. The more communities out there that are acting, the more action, the pressure there is on the state to act. And I just saw the other day that there's a new climate coalition that has formed among communities in Wisconsin to network and press for state action on climate change. And there are a number of communities that have joined it very quickly. And then finally, what happens in these programs reduces greenhouse gas emissions, which is ultimately the objective, because while we need to adapt to climate change, we desperately need to mitigate it by reducing greenhouse gas emissions and capturing carbon from the atmosphere, which is, one of the small things that our tree planting program will do. So with that, I'll just flip it to our speakers. They're going to present in tandem, and then the questions are going to come after that, if we can. And we are pleased to have both of them. Laurel Sukup, I hope I said that right, has been with the DNR for more than 20 years, I think, providing service to all of us, important service. And she is the Chief of Sustainability and Business Support, and oversees the program we're talking about tonight. And she's going to give the broader perspective. Laurel also is on the executive board of the UW Arboretum, the member board of the Great Lakes Clean Communities Network. And if you look at her LinkedIn thing, you'll see she's been contributing to community for a long time, public radio, mental health, lots of volunteer activity. We appreciate it. The second speaker is Ryan Heise, which I've been told rhymes with nice, which is apropos. Village administrator at Egg Harbor, which has led the way in Door County on the Green Tier Legacy Community Program, inspired others. Unfortunately, several weeks ago, they left the drawbridges down in Sturgeon Bay, and Ryan is now in Michigan as the city manager at Saugatuck, and it's a great gain for them. and a bit of a loss for all of us. But we wish Ryan well, and I'm sure he will do well in his home state of Michigan. He Ryan has a master's in public administration, undergraduate degree in urban planning, and somewhere along the line, he learned a lot about leadership. So with that, I'll turn it over to Laurel to lay the program out for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Roy. Okay, I'm going to share my screen here. Thank you so much for inviting me to talk about Green Tier Legacy Communities. I've been working with legacy communities for a really long time, and it has been some of the most rewarding work I have done while at DNR. A little bit about my program at the Department of Natural Resources. Well, actually, my three programs that I oversee at the department. Um, we're a little bit of a square peg in a round hole in that we everything we do is voluntary and non-regulatory, because what we're doing is we're empowering our customers with good information so that they can do more and take ownership of their environmental footprint. I think one reason that working with legacy communities has been so powerful for me is that um, my belief is that government, no matter if it's state, county, municipal, federal, all government entities have as their primary role doing the best for their community and citizens. And that is at its very core the purpose of legacy communities. Because of that, I'm always looking for ways that I can work with our member communities and help them build capacity uh, for doing their own work. I'm sorry, can everyone hear me? I was getting a little feedback there. Um, so what we do is we strive to help members reach their goals by finding experts on topics that are keeping them up at night and sharing stories and lessons learned from peers so that you know what is and has been done here in Wisconsin, and maybe even more important, how the process has worked. So I'm going to advance my slide. So, what is Green Tier Legacy Communities? It's a non-regulatory, voluntary program for local governments. We focus in on helping communities baseline where they are regarding their sustainability performance and measure their continual improvement each year. It's completely free to participate, other than the staff time you commit. But we are committed to helping local governments build capacity by hosting and developing programming that helps you with the information that you need when you need it. The real horsepower of the program, though, comes from the participants. It in simply sharing what they're doing and the stories behind their efforts. So why would a community want to join legacy communities? What are the benefits? As a member of legacy communities, you're assigned a single point of contact at the DNR. This person may not be able to answer all of your questions, but they will help you navigate the department and help you find the right people who can. We also have DNR staff at the ready who are technical experts who can help you with your questions about everything from wastewater to urban wildlife. We will be able to tune into, or you will be able to tune into our monthly sustainability strategies webinar series. The topics that are offered are suggested by the members, by the local communities. Our format is that we work to have a technical expert, not necessarily from DNR, it could be an NGO or a consultant, paired with a local government with direct experience on that topic so that we can capture the story of their effort. They're held over the lunch hour, so we usually say, come have lunch with us. But even if you can't make that time, you can watch the session you missed, as well as our entire archive at your leisure. The department has also worked to align additional resources for members. There are a number of DNR administered grants that acknowledge local governments that participate in legacy communities by offering extra points or tiebreakers for some of our funding programs. We also do a survey after each one of our quarterly member meetings. The purpose, like the goal of legacy communities, is always improving our programming. One thing we consistently hear is that members really appreciate the ability to network with their peers and colleagues across the state. We are very committed to continuing with that and facilitating opportunities even outside of the meetings. The last benefit that I'd like to mention is the ability for members to connect with DNR's local leadership. Here in DNR, we split the state up into 5 regions. Each of those regions has an individual who's part of our secretary's office. Matter of fact, they are called secretaries directors. They not only participate in our member meetings, but they also make themselves available to our members. So you can think about those connections as a direct line to our Secretary Cole. Move on to the next one. Here is a list of some of the grants and loans that recognize legacy communities' participation. I do want to be very clear here. Just because you are a legacy community does not mean you were awarded the grant. Rather, these are when the reviewers get into a situation where they have 2 exceptional and worthy applicants. If one is a legacy community, they will get the preference points. Here's a map of all of our participants. You will see that the Door County has a strong showing. At our current complement of members, we are reaching 1 million residents. I'll also point out, though, that the Bayfield Peninsula is just not that far behind. They only have one community. They're only one community behind you folks in Door County. So if you're interested in joining legacy communities, and I hope you are, how would you go about it? Since joining is a community decision, we ask that your community would adopt a resolution that documents your intent to join and fulfill the steps of participation. We feel that it is incredibly important that the community think of membership as an opportunity for the entire local government. The diversity of our programming will be sometimes of greater interest to your public works program, and then next time it may be more relevant to your purchasing professionals. So even though we touch on many topics, we do ask that a primary contact be identified by the community as the person that we correspond with consistently. The next step is to use our Sustainable Strategy score sheet to baseline where you are as a community. I'll talk more about that score sheet in a bit. We then give you 1 year from the time that you join before you submit the first annual report. So as an example, if you were to join in September of this year, September of 2021, then even though normally annual reports are due in March of each year, your first annual report would not be due until March of 2023. And then, of course, we ask that you engage with the network. As I mentioned earlier, the real horsepower is the collaborative nature of the members. By engaging, sometimes you're on the receiving end of learning about how others have tackled issues or projects that you're embarking on, and other times you're paying it forward by sharing lessons that you've learned. And when you engage with a network, you're expanding your limited resources by taking information from others and using that to leapfrog technologies. Follow their roadmap, steal a good idea, or maybe narrow your list of contractors to work with. All in all, we're working to build capacity for your community by saving you time and resources. This is a screen grab of our sustainable strategy score sheet. I mentioned earlier that Green Tier is all about doing a little better each year. We know major monumental gains are rare occurrences, and the name of the game is slow and steady. That is why we developed this outline of ideas. This list is broken down into various categories: transportation, zoning, natural resources management, energy, water use and conservation, waste management, and healthy communities. Something I want to make very clear: just because something is on the list does not make it mandatory. Rather, this is a list of ideas that you could be, um, uh, you know, putting on your plate or taking action on to make some positive changes in your community. Not only does this list exist so you can measure your progress, it also exists to offer you some inspiration should you need it. One area that is really important is the section where we allow you to highlight your work in areas that may not even be on the score sheet. We know this is not a comprehensive list, and you need to move the needle in the area that is of greatest importance to your community. Just like we ask our members to strive to do better every year, I will make mention that we are doing some in-house programming to make this submittal electronic and hopefully make it even easier for communities to report out on their successes. We're really committed to keeping the content fresh and moving off some of those things that were probably innovative 10 years ago or maybe even just 5 years ago, but are kind of standard practices now. The score sheet is the perfect complement to your annual report. We want you to get the most mileage out of your work, so the annual report and tracking your progress on the score sheet is a great way to document your work and share it with your council and citizens. Actually, we hope that you do not view this as an additional report. We want to be in step with you and build capacity, not make more work. The last thing I wanted to mention was a bit more about the members you would be joining. Not only are, and what they're making progress on, and the items that they're utilizing on the score sheet. From the map that you saw, you know that our members are all over the state. Many of them have a lot in common with your communities. They're not the major metropolitan cities with programs dedicated to moving the needle on climate actions. They have constrained resources and must make the most of them. And even with those constraints, we have members who have 100% renewable energy resolutions, specific climate commitments like tax levies, resolutions to support the Paris Accord, adherence to the Global Covenant for Mayors for Climate and Energy. We have members that are working on their 25 by 25 energy independence, and several with climate action plans, and many that have received the Soul Smart designation. And with that, I'm going to stop sharing and turn this over to Ryan, who is the star of the show and who you all really came here to hear from.
That's not true, Laurel. They're here for you. Good presentation. So how fun for me to see so many friends and colleagues from Door County and a few from my new side of the pond, Saugatuck, Michigan. And to be honest, I got a little teary to see some of you on the call. So Laurel, I guess you're right. This is kind of a reunion. All right, great to see all of you. And thanks for the Climate Change Coalition and its members for the great work that they do and hosting this event. So Egg Harbor, a while back, decided to make health and sustainability part of its core mission. And one of the ways that we did that in Egg Harbor was through the Green Tier Legacy communities, which provided a support group and a network of resources that allowed us to do that. And if you ask why did Egg Harbor choose to go down that path, it's because, in my opinion, environmental protection and sustainability in Door County is one of the rare things that most everyone can agree on in the county. And so why not support that and make that part of the mission of the community and build upon that to build more community. And that's what we did. We joined in 2017, and the picture on the screen is not of me. That is Trustee Angela Lynch, who is on this call, and she is what we call a fire soul for moving sustainability forward at the elected level. So she was a big part of pushing this program forward in Egg Harbor. I should also mention that we have a amazing Green Tier task force at this point in time, which is all volunteer group, and they're enthusiastic and are doing amazing things. Because the Village of Egg Harbor made this sustainability and Green Tier program part of their core mission, we were able to hire a sustainability coordinator by the name of Lydia. She's part-time sustainability coordinator, but she also works at the Crest Pavilion, which for those who may not know is our beautiful, sorry, I'm gonna say this quite often, my previous job, their beautiful library community center, which actually supports and sustains a lot of the environmental programming that's going on. So we are able to hire a new position to help us move our programs forward. I should also mention Jessica Ranke, who works at the Crest Pavilion. She's part and parcel to everything that we did, they continue to do in Egg Harbor. And we also got buy-in from our entire staff with the mission, which is important, and with the council, which is pretty amazing. So we made it part of our core mission, and we think it's working. And one of the reasons that we think that, and we kind of know it, is because the Village of Egg Harbor was bestowed in 2020 the Governor's Tourism Stewardship Award, which is bestowed upon a community that or business that is showing excellence in providing environmental stewardship. And we're really proud. We were really proud of that. And by the way, with COVID, we were totally expecting to go down to, previously we would have expected to go down to Madison. It would have been a big deal, shaking hands, kissing babies, getting the award from the governor, but we had a fun little Zoom conference instead. All right, before I forget, and I feel like this is super dangerous at this point, I do want to point out that the Village of Egg has an amazing website with their sustainability programming, and I'm going to do a new share. And Nicole, help me out if I'm off target here. How are we doing?
You can kind of see it.
Is
Mostly.
it super small or what's
No,
going on?
it's just like too zoomed in, but go ahead and I'll let you know.
Okay, so so here's the header for the website, and there's a tab, sustainability, and there's 1, 2, 3. We got solar and an invasive species program, and then just like the general sustainability tab. So if we go to the sustainability tab, there are a ton of resources on here. And I do want to point out that map again, which Laurel had talked about earlier, and the fact that Door County is in competition perhaps with the rest of the state. It would only take a few more municipalities to really solidify our place in the state of Wisconsin. I'm just saying, why not? Just let's get a few more. So anyways, lots of good resources. Anyone that's interested in anything that I have to say tonight should probably just go back to this webpage and check it out. And we have a specific page dedicated to solar. I'll touch on this tonight as well, but there's tons of good resources, including a group buy, which I'll mention in Door County really quick. Door County Solar, it's on the right side of this, on this page, worth checking out. Normally a municipality would never promote a single program with a single vendor, but they're the only vendor doing it right now. So we have, and they will continue to do. Invasive species, we have a whole page dedicated to that. They have a whole page dedicated to that, which is great. So I wanted to point that out. Going back to the slideshow, hopefully. How are we doing, Nicole? Am I in?
Yep, you're doing good. And I shared
Great.
your link in the chat if anybody wants to see the villageofeggharbor.org.
Thanks for doing that. So for the next 10 minutes, I'm just going to fly through some programming that we've done and just leave lots of room for questions at the end. And so using the Green Tier program, I'm going to just quickly explain some of the programming. And here we go. So first thing we did was a baseline assessment of our municipal infrastructure and just kind of looking at what I would call the low-hanging fruit. We did get a grant through Focus on Energy to help us review this. We're looking at ways to be more efficient with our energy. And I think this Focus on Energy grant was specific to our wastewater treatment plant. And it paid big dividends. And I think I'll touch back on that point briefly in a little bit. That was our first step. And then going back to that baseline assessment that Laurel had mentioned, that's the score sheet. We did really bad when we scored ourselves, but that's okay. The point is that you know where you're at, you know where you're deficient, and then just kind of making that incremental change that Laurel had talked about. So there's that.
And Ryan, can I just jump in there just
Please
for a second? It's not that anyone does good or bad. It is really a focus on where you are, and then how did you, progress over time. You're really measuring against yourself.
Yeah, thank you for that. Poor choice of words. Just a benchmark, right? And then you know where you're at and you can improve. So at the Library Community Center, one of the things that we incorporated with the original plans was eventually getting solar and car charging stations. And we did that car charging station with 2 different programs. One was a basic donation for the universal chargers, of which we have only 2 for now at the Crest. And then the other one was a program through Tesla, which was their destination charging program. And this picture in the middle right here is kind of a joke. that it took a while to get our chargers, and maybe like 30 to 50 emails and phone calls to eventually get those. And so I sent this picture, which is a Tesla charging on our streetlight pole and just like a normal socket, and saying like, hey, where are those chargers at? We have, we have customers. So I was contacted pretty quickly after that snide little email and picture. It worked. Okay, to touch on solar, there's no reason, in my opinion, that any municipality in Door County should not be putting solar on their infrastructure and their buildings based on our analysis. I just really quickly want to talk about how we went about it. The first thing that we did was we reviewed existing installations in Door County. There's plenty of solar that exists in Door County. So we went to kind of more large scale solar installations and more residential. So commercial and residential is a better way to frame that. We reviewed their numbers. We looked at their specific economics because we knew that there would be some people that said that solar perhaps wouldn't work in our cloudy, cold environment, which is not true. After we reviewed the basic economics, we hired a consultant to perform a feasibility analysis, just to really super dial in those numbers that we thought existed in our municipal infrastructure. We then reviewed those numbers with our elected officials and received approval to go out with a request for proposals or a public bid. And as part of that process, we chased down grants, and we finally awarded a contract. So the Crest Pavilion will have solar installed this spring. It's amazing. And they're incorporating an interface that will have a readout inside the building so people can see the math and see how much carbon's being offset and the numbers. And at this, I would also say at this point that it worked out really well as far as return on investment in this particular installation for this building. I think it's a 12-year payback at this period. And day one, the Crest Pavilion will be saving money on their electrical bill. So even if you don't love hugging trees or you're not into anything to do with sustainability, just from the basic economics, this makes a lot of sense. And in fact, I would argue that it would be a disservice not to have this somewhere on your municipal property because you're saving tax dollars at the end of the day. We also passed us, Laurel had mentioned the Soul Smart program, which is just eliminating barriers from the residential and commercial market from entering into solar. And so that what that really means is that we streamlined our building and zoning codes to make it super easy for anyone to come in and have that installed on their property. Okay, transitioning to a different program, Eggy Bikes. Who doesn't love an Eggy Bike? So this is a free grab and go bike program in the village of Egg Harbor. And these bikes are sponsored by local businesses, and they're so much fun. And there's a couple of things that really make this flourish is the low theft rate in the village of Egg Harbor. Also, the fact that we have no competition with bike rentals. We don't have a bike rental shop. So maybe this is more difficult in other areas, but it's really been working well for the village of Egg Harbor. It's quite the fun program. I think we're up to like 16 bikes, but people seem to really enjoy it. And again, this is small incremental changes. This isn't a huge program, but it's something. Farmers markets. Okay, yeah, again, not a new program, but the village didn't have it. And boy, did we learn through COVID how important local food sourcing is and how much is available to us in the area. So good thing the village of Egg Harbor started this back in 2017. walk, bike, explore Egg Harbor. This is kind of part of our major comprehensive plan in the village. And really it's all about getting people out of their cars and walking safely, biking safely throughout our community, and just really enjoying themselves. And it's all about non-motorized transportation. So there's something to be said about the carbon offset with that. But more than that, I think it's about strengthening community and connectivity with a sense of place. And this has been our vibe. This was our vibe in Egg Harbor the last few years. And through that, I think other people noticed that, and the village of Egg Harbor received a lot of grants. So here's a map of the walkability and bikeability, and what the village highlighted was art, history, gardens, and some of the businesses, or all the businesses, and the environment. Speaking of the environment, going along with getting outside and enjoying nature, here's the village's beach expansion, which was also had ADA accessibility, and also incorporated some of the high water that was being experienced. And they will also connect a sidewalk to this beach. Crazy, I know, to get people from downtown to the other regions of the village. Recycling. So just again, small incremental steps, but the village put out recycling bins in their park spaces. And I'll just highlight the few important things with that are just making it super apparent that recycling bins are not for trash. And you can do that with, putting tops on putting different types of tops on these recycling cans, and also putting really good signage. And maybe you have to use a few different languages on the signs, but making it super apparent so that your Parks and Public Works crew doesn't have to sift through the commingled trash and recycling. That's pretty much it. Just got to be super intelligent about the way you make your recycling cans. And then also we have programs that are promoting disposal of household hazardous waste, medical supplies, and then also electronic waste. And we have TerraCycling at the Crest and the village, well, at the Crest now. And so TerraCycling is a whole nother subject. Elimination of single-use plastics or packaging. This is one of our big endeavors going into last summer, and we had an intern to help us out with this. And the whole idea is because no municipality in the state of Wisconsin is able to ban single-use packaging per the state statutes. The village of Egg Harbor said, okay, then let's just try to get businesses to do it on their own. And the big attempt was just to identify obstacles to barrier, right? So why wouldn't businesses just do this on their own accord? One, they don't have the time to do that, especially in the summer, even our shoulder season now. They don't know what questions to ask their vendor, and there's a cost issue. So we're working through all of those. So we try to identify, what is the cost increment to going to these compostable materials or recyclable materials. And then the next step before I left was, can we find certain groups to provide grants to these businesses to provide them 1 year's worth of funds to transition to these compostable materials. And I think it would only be a few $100, depending on scope and scale. But I still kind of hope that does eventually happen. I think that will help out some businesses just to kind of pull the trigger. I'm just going to keep moving through. Along with that, the village of Egg Harbor, mostly through Lydia and Jess and Angela and others, have this Green Tier Advocate Award. So we have a point-based system, and we'll issue an award. They will issue an award each year. Transitioning to an entirely different program, invasive species. There could be a whole segment dedicated to this, but the basic idea, which was part of the reason that Lydia was hired, was to identify where invasive species are at, target which ones are most cost effective to treat, treat the private and public areas at the same time, map these areas, go back and review them on a periodic basis and see if we're making some incremental change on that one as well. So we're networking with all different types of groups, namely DESIST, which is Door County Invasive Species Treatment, but there's others, so we're trying to pull resources in. And Lydia has created a map, which is on our website. And so we're really off, they're really off and running with that program. Moving on, community compost. And I won't spend too much time with this, but we have tons of brown material, which means leaves and sticks and woody material. And we're pulling in more yard waste, more food scrap to participate. I think they're up to 7 businesses now that are providing food scrap. And a few things that I'll mention is that it does require a permit from the Department of Natural Resources. And I feel like also the other thing I'll mention, I feel like this program has room for exponential growth, and that compost appears really quickly once the residents know it's available to them. Seed library. So it's an exchange program with seeds. It's at a library, great program. Health and all policies. So part of the Green Tier Legacy program is trying to encourage our elected officials that when they make a policy, just to think about all the different sectors and crossovers that exist: health, transportation, housing, work, nutrition, water and sanitation. And the CREST, as I mentioned many times, this library community center is just a warehouse of programming and fostering sustainability in all ways. And so here's some of the stuff that's going on here. Fitness related and culture, which is also important. So why not all of Door County? You know, the main audience tonight is the members of Door County. I would really hope that you push that your municipality move this program forward if they haven't done so already. Use Village of Egg Harbor as a resource. You have the website. And then I always say you have this amazing opportunity to plant 2 to 3 million seeds, which is the number of tourists that Door County has. And so you never know what somebody can take home with them and keep pushing sustainability forward. So thank you. That's it.
I think we're gonna do some questions. I wanted to see if Roy had any questions first, and if not, I can put this over to our first question. Roy?
No, go ahead. I'll chip in at the end
Okay.
if I have some.
Okay. Our first question is from Rebecca. Rebecca, are you interested in unmuting and just asking? Since we don't have too many, we're okay with you unmuting yourself and asking.
Laurel, hi Ryan. Laurel, when you talked about the state level, can individuals from participating communities attend the webinars and the other programs that a Green Tier community offers, or do you have to do it in unison with your community organization?
Yeah, so what we try to do is make sure that we always have room for the municipal representative themselves. Just a little side note, a municipality or local government can also sponsor a citizen to be their primary representative. We do acknowledge that. We just want to make sure that everyone is on board with that process. So definitely the webinars would be available to individuals, and also we would welcome participants at the quarterly meetings.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you. Next up is Cynthia. Are you interested in unmuting yourself and asking your question? It's a little long, so I'd rather you do it.
Sure. This is actually Jim. I'm on.
Oh, okay.
Um, my question, and I'll read it, is how do you respond to the criticism that a non-mandatory green tier program is, in quotations, too little and too late in significantly reducing greenhouse gas emissions, and that programs like green tier make us feel good that we're making progress on reducing greenhouse gases, but it's really inadequate to reduce it significantly enough to prevent further global warming. And that kind of follows up with Roy's points early on when I think his fifth point was reduction in greenhouse gases. And I just want to say that I live in Sheboygan, and I reviewed our green tier report, and it was kind of a feel-good report, but in terms of actual long-term environmental improvement, I am very much concerned that it doesn't do very much.
Well, I'll take a stab at this one. What I would say is, from my experience working with not only legacy communities but also green tier businesses, the fact that people come to this voluntarily oftentimes means that they have more of a commitment than those that may be forced into something. You know, anytime we're forced to do something, that doesn't feel very good. And we have some really long-standing participants in this program who like I said in my presentation, you know, those huge gains, they don't happen easily and all that often, but those incremental wins and bringing your community along and actually, you know, making sure that you're doing the bidding of your constituents and your citizens really offers a lot of buy-in. Just today, I saw a presentation. One of my folks had gone to a webinar, and they brought this information back, and it was the survey of a national survey saying how many people believe in global warming, and then they kept narrowing it down. How many people think it's going to affect the environment and animals and plants? How many people think it's going to affect your community? And pretty much that was really steady, where people were like, yes, I believe in it. Yes, I think it's going to impact the plants and the animals. But when they asked, will it affect you? And this was just the United States. Then the responses dropped off, and people said, I don't think it's going to actually affect me. And one of the things that the speaker had indicated was that it wasn't local enough. The feelings of climate change weren't local enough. And so I think that, it, you know, to your question, too little, too late, or not enough, I think that we have to meet people where they are. And even, you know, I think some of us sitting around the table have been in this game for a while and have a sense of urgency and want things to go a lot faster. And then we need to meet people in a way that they can believe that they can make a change. Roy, I'd value your insights.
Yeah, well, I think it's a good question. And I think there's no question that green tier is nowhere near adequate to address climate change. And that is absolutely true. And in the US, federal action is going to be necessary if we're really going to aggressively address the issue. But what's interesting is that major business, some states and local communities are ahead of, the curve, ahead of federal government. And tree planting isn't going to solve the problem. My putting solar on my house, which we have, is definitely not going to solve the problem. But it is one small thing to do in the right direction. And the more that we do in the right direction, the better off we are. As I said earlier, I think Green Tier inspires local businesses to be more sustainable and to look at their greenhouse gas emissions. It inspires local residents and other communities, and it is a small step forward. But the same issue could be raised and has been raised from an entirely different perspective, from a negative perspective, which I don't think the question is, but that it doesn't make sense for the US to put a price on carbon or cap and trade or the the Obama plan and significantly reduce the carbon emissions from transportation and electric utilities because China and India are just going to keep going. So it's not enough. And that's true too. That it takes a global, to really address this issue takes global action. But I think that the answer is action is essential on the individual, community, state, federal, and global. And I would say by no means and if you feel that your local green tier program isn't really pushing the envelope enough, get in there and help them to push it. I think the bottom line is that one of the challenges with all these programs, I know from my experience in the prior life where our utility would work with schools on energy conservation, is that if we didn't have the support of the principal and the buildings maintenance people, we were not going to get anywhere. They had to buy on to get it done. So you really got to work that. And one of the challenges with local communities is their staff is pretty busy and in some cases can look at this as got another job, which can be a detriment. But if community members pitch in and help, as they have in Egg Harbor by setting up the committee to work on this, to work, so that all the burden doesn't fall on the local employees, that will help. So to the extent that it looks like feel good and it's not enough, I would encourage you to help them do more through volunteerism. But I will get nothing done if we look at each individual action or program as not enough. I hope that helps.
I have 2 cents to put in. Hi, it's Angela Lynch from Egg Harbor. I'm one of the trustees and helped to get Green Tier to our community, and Ryan helped a ton with that. Thank you. I just have to say that had we not signed the resolution, we would never have made all of the progress we have made in the last 4 years, 3 years, going on 4 years. Not at all. I think being the Green Tier resolution, the score sheet gets you up to par. The energy audit gets you understanding where you can close some loopholes. You form a team, you find your low-hanging fruit, and we're just off and running. Our next project is, we're looking at how to become a chemical-free community, and we're working with non-toxic neighborhoods, and they have a great toolkit. And I'm also looking at Farmers Footprint, which is an incredible nonprofit helping farmers shift to be restorative, regenerative agriculture, which is huge and potentially a carbon sequestering, gem for our world to move towards with no-till and planting grasses. And I come from a farming family in Iowa, unfortunately, completely chemical. And I watched that. Anyway, I'm getting off topic, but Green Tier has changed Egg Harbor in a really great way. And if it didn't exist, none of this would have happened.
Thanks, Angela. We just have one more quick question. Betsy was asking, has Sister Bay expressed interest? I just wanted to double check. I think we talked about Laurel or Roy. If Sister Bay had already signed on, or they're maybe having meetings about it.
Yeah, my understanding is they are having meetings, that it has come up in Sister Bay, as well as Bailey's Harbor, and as well as the city of Sturgeon Bay. The county has signed on, but I don't think that Sister Bay has taken the final step. But if somebody knows something different, yeah. Laurel?
That's true. You captured it correctly.
And I think it's important for people who are talking to their local communities about this to, there will be resistance because it's another thing to do. But on the other hand, I think that Egg Harbor discovered with its solar project, what would surprise a lot of people is they will save money fairly immediately. And with municipalities, these projects depend a lot on grants because private parties get tax credits and tax deductions to do it. And there's a lot of incentives in the tax code for renewable energy that don't apply to NGOs or to municipalities. So being able to access the grant money to offset the upfront cost is really important. And as Laurel pointed out, you get points for being in Green Tier. The grants are competitive. I know the Public Service Commission of Wisconsin has a $7 million a year grant program for energy innovation. And that is a important source of potential funds. And the big projects are projects like they're looking at Bailey's Harbor, where they need to replace the HVAC system for really a very historic, old, and large town hall. Now that's a 30-year decision with lots of implications, including implications of greenhouse gas emissions, sustainability, and long-term costs. And you don't want the upfront cost to block what is the best life solution over the projected life of the improvement. So, anything that gives you a step forward is good in that process. Laurel?
And Roy, I just want to make mention, in addition to like the preferential points and the tiebreakers, you mentioned the HVAC system. We also do partner with groups like ASHRAE, who is the American Society of Heating and Energy. I apologize, I'm not getting their name just right, but technical experts that can help with decision points and understanding best available technologies. So again, what we try to do is listen to what the local governments are working on, what their struggles are, what kind of hurdles they're seeing, and bring in those experts to have really meaningful conversations to help guide those decisions, those very expensive decisions like you made mention of, Roy.
All right. I think that concludes our presentation today. I don't have any other questions. Thanks, Laurel. Thanks, Ryan. Thank you, Roy. Thanks everybody for joining us tonight. Roy, do you have any last minute comments?
I don't. Well, I'll give one. Thank everybody for coming. And Nicole earlier on said that on April 21st, we have Catherine Hayhoe coming. And we are extraordinarily lucky to do that. We did it with the climate lobby and through the constant dedication to getting this done by Mary Smythe. But Catherine has been described to me by a number of different people as one of the 3 top communicators and speakers on climate change in the country. She's out of Texas. She's just been hired as the Nature Conservancy's chief scientist, while she will continue with her endowed chair at Texas Tech. And I don't know exactly what she's going to talk about, but I can tell you whatever she's going to talk about, she's going to be good. So join us on the 21st.
Can I say something?
Sure.
I'm Barry Johnson. I'm one of the lucky guys from Saugatuck, Michigan. And I was sitting in at the interviews when Ryan was interviewing for the job over here. And I know more now why your losses are a huge gain, because during our interview process, this didn't really even come up about this side that Ryan brings to the table. And about a year ago, our city council started a toe in the water on it, starting a recycling committee with a tri-community. We've got 3 communities in this area. Douglas is, we're about 900 people in Saugatuck. Douglas across the Kalamazoo River is about 1,000. And then the surrounding township probably has about 2,000 or 3,000. And so we started a tri-community recycling program, which now I'm thinking, after hearing you guys, we should rename it a sustainability committee, because there's so much more you can do with all this. We've put our toe in the water on composting, but this has really opened my eyes. And we had at least 4 people from Saugatuck. I see Lori Goshorn still on, but we had a city council person, Garnett Lewis, watching the presentation, and another couple of powerhouse ladies, Glenna DeYoung and Marcia Casper, were watching. And this has really piqued our fancy. And I think I can speak for my colleagues that we have so much more to learn, but we know a guy. We know a guy that can help lead us to this. So it's going to be a little maybe slow for us to pick up the ball, but this has been an amazing thing. And thank you, Ryan, for letting us know about this link tonight. And I really appreciate it. And I appreciate all you folks. We're just the other side of the lake. So